Mexican cartels have built an army of their own, fitted with armored trucks, heavy machine guns, and even military-grade weapons, but still doesn't stand a chance against America's flying tank, the A-10 Warthog. This jet was born for battlefields where survival is nearly impossible, yet it always comes back. Could cartel firepower even scratch it, or would it be crushed in seconds? Join us as we find out what happens when Mexican cartels challenge the A-10 Warthog. The answer will leave you stunned. For years, Mexican cartels were treated as criminal gangs, but over time, their firepower has grown into something far larger. Today, many of these groups operate more like paramilitary forces. They rule large areas with convoys of trucks, powerful guns and explosives, strong enough to compete with real armies. This did not happen overnight. It took many years, built on smuggling, outside connections, and easy access to black markets full of leftover military weapons. Ordinary pickup trucks have been turned into battlefield machines. Soldiers often call them technicals. Cartels reinforce these vehicles with steel plates and bullet-resistant glass, then mount them with powerful belt-fed weapons. Some carry .50 caliber machine guns, strong enough to rip through light armor or even damage helicopters flying close to the ground. Others carry grenade launchers or improvised rocket systems strapped onto the flatbed. When several of these vehicles move together in a convoy, they can overwhelm local police forces and even hold their ground against Mexico's army in open combat. Their weapon supplies go beyond small arms. Smuggling routes provide access to rifles and explosives built for war zones. Cartels have been seen using M60 machine guns, Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifles, and RPG-7 rocket launchers. These are not weapons meant for back alley shootouts. They are designed for the battlefield. They can pierce armored vehicles, bring down aircraft, or stop advancing troops. In terms of raw firepower, a well-armed cartel group can reach the level of a military infantry squad, at least on paper. The way they organize themselves makes them even more dangerous. In big battles, cartels send out long lines of vehicles moving together in an organized way. They use radios to plan attacks, fly drones to watch from above, and block roads the same way soldiers do. Some groups even mount anti-aircraft guns on trucks, firing thousands of bullets in a minute. With tactics like these, it's hard to tell the difference between a cartel and a real army. For cartel leaders, these weapons are not just for protection, it is about control. Heavy weapons keep smuggling routes open, protect shipments, and strike fear into rivals. These convoys act like moving fortresses, showing force and reminding local police they stand no chance. In places where the government is weak, this kind of military power makes cartels seem impossible to defeat. But even with all this, their power is not without limits. While their weapons are deadly against police or lightly equipped soldiers, they are not built to withstand modern air power. Most of their firepower is effective only at close to medium range. None of it can stop an aircraft designed to fly low, absorb heavy fire, and strike with precision from the sky. This is why many argue that, despite their growing strength, cartels cannot truly match a professional military. Their armored convoys, machine guns, and rocket systems give them the appearance of an army and the confidence to fight like one. But when placed against platforms such as the A-10 Warthog, their weapons become little more than easy targets waiting to be destroyed. Cartels may look powerful on the ground, but their strength fades when compared to an aircraft built to take hits and keep fighting. The real question is, how can convoys and trucks stand a chance against a machine like that? The A-10 Thunderbolt II, better known by its nickname Warthog, was built with a single goal: to protect troops on the battlefield. Unlike sleek fighter jets that rely on speed, the A-10 was made for endurance, precision, and resilience. It flies low, stays near the battle, and delivers massive firepower right where it's needed. One of its key features is the titanium cockpit, known as the bathtub. This thick armor protects the pilot from machine guns and even direct strikes from anti-aircraft weapons. The armor is so effective that planes have returned to base with engines damaged, wings torn, or fuselage riddled with holes, yet remain flyable. Few aircraft in history have shown that kind of toughness. Its most famous weapon is the GAU-8 Avenger, a massive rotary cannon that dominates the front of the aircraft. With 7 barrels, it fires 30mm depleted uranium shells at nearly 4,000 rounds per minute. Each shell can punch through tanks, fortified bunkers, or armored vehicles. The gun is so large that the rest of the plane was designed around it. When the cannon fires, the recoil is powerful enough to slow the jet mid-flight. But the Warthog is not limited to its gun. It can carry a wide range of weapons on its wings, including guided bombs, Maverick missiles, and rocket pods. This mix gives it the ability to take out tanks, artillery, supply depots, and convoys with pinpoint accuracy. More importantly, the A-10 can circle over battlefields for hours, ready to respond the moment ground forces need support. Fast jets pass overhead in seconds. The Warthog stays until the mission is finished. Against Cartel firepower, machine guns, RPGs, or improvised technicals, the A-10's design is on another level. In Iraq and Afghanistan, it faced Soviet-built tanks, fortified compounds, and insurgent groups armed with heavy weapons. Even convoys with anti-aircraft guns could not stop it. The Warthog was created during the Cold War to destroy massed waves of Soviet tanks in Europe, so Cartel arsenals seem small by comparison. Its survival features also set it apart. The twin engines sit high above the fuselage, keeping them away from ground fire and debris. They are built to keep running even when damaged, and at low power, they are quiet enough to make tracking difficult. Its wide wings give it strong lift, allowing it to fly low and slow while staying steady enough to hit targets accurately. The A-10 is also known for reliability. It has backup controls so pilots can keep flying even if hydraulics fail. Its fuel tanks conceal when hit, lowering the risk of fire or explosion. Tough landing gear lets it take off and land on rough airstrips near combat zones. The Warthog is respected for what it can do, not how it looks. Since its first flight in the 1970s, it has proven itself in every major conflict. Decades later, it remains unmatched in the role it was created for. Against ground units without advanced air defenses, the A-10 is devastating. Its mix of armor, endurance, and firepower explains why soldiers trust it and why enemies on the ground dread the sound of it overhead. The A-10 was built to survive the toughest battlefields, but toughness alone is not what makes it feared. Its true reputation comes from the moment it fires its main weapon. So what makes this gun so legendary? At the heart of the Warthog's strength is the GAU-8 Avenger cannon. This huge gun is what makes the plane so deadly. Unlike the smaller weapons carried by most jets, the Avenger was built for one job: smashing tanks, breaking bunkers, and wiping out convoys in seconds. With 7 spinning barrels, it fires 30mm rounds that strike with massive force. Each shell weighs nearly a pound and is designed to pierce through heavy armor. Fired in sustained bursts, the cannon spits out close to 4,000 rounds in a minute. The result is devastating. Steel, concrete, and reinforced vehicles crumble on impact. This is not a weapon meant to pin enemies down. It is meant to erase them. The gun sits directly under the plane's nose, lined up with the fuselage for accuracy. This placement makes the A-10 stable while firing. The recoil is so intense that it slows the aircraft slightly every time the trigger is pulled. Yet the Warthog was built to handle this kickback. The gun and plane are not separate tools. They function together as a single system. In combat, the Avenger has shown its effectiveness across different terrains. In deserts, it rips apart convoys moving supplies. In the mountains, the Warthog can hit hidden enemy positions with accuracy that normal artillery cannot. Its shells move so fast that they reach the target almost at once. Against tanks and armored vehicles, the heavy rounds break through defenses that smaller weapons cannot touch. The sound of the cannon has also become part of its legend. Soldiers often describe the deep roar as frightening for the enemy, but comforting for those it protects. That noise comes from the sheer number of shells being fired, each strong enough to damage or destroy a vehicle. Behind the gun is a giant drum stored inside the plane's body. It holds over 1,000 shells, allowing the Warthog to make several attack runs before needing to reload. A simple system feeds the shells into the gun and returns the empty cases back into the drum, keeping the plane balanced and steady even during heavy combat. Cartel convoys or fortified hideouts would stand little chance against such firepower. Makeshift armor bolted onto trucks cannot withstand the impact of a 30mm depleted uranium round. Where rifles or rocket-propelled grenades might damage a vehicle, the Avenger leaves it in ruins. For this reason, militaries trust the A-10 to tackle threats that ground troops cannot handle safely. During campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan, the cannon proved its worth time and again. It was used against insurgents hiding in cities and villages, where precision mattered. The A-10 does not need to drop bombs that destroy everything around. It can go after enemy fighters directly, hitting hard without causing massive damage to the area. That mix of accuracy and devastation is what makes the Avenger stand apart from any other aircraft cannon in service. While the A-10 can carry guided bombs and missiles, it often does not need them. The cannon is strong enough to control the fight on its own. Entire armored columns, once thought to be the backbone of ground warfare, became vulnerable when faced with the Warthog. For any enemy relying on vehicles or fortified positions, the Avenger turns the battlefield into a death trap. Every design decision on the A-10 traces back to this gun. The armor, the engines, even the shape of the wings were all engineered to support the cannon. The Avenger is not just a weapon added to the jet, it is the reason the plane was built. This mix of gun and aircraft makes the Warthog one of the most feared planes in the world, able to wipe out ground targets in seconds. The A-10's cannon was built to tear through anything on the ground, but its real test came in wars where threats often hid in plain sight. How would the Warthog prove itself when the danger was not always visible? In Iraq and Afghanistan, battles were not fought in wide-open fields. They happened in busy cities, steep mountains, and huge deserts where enemies hid and attacked by surprise. These tough conditions tested the Warthog in ways training never could. What set the plane apart was its skill to fly low and keep fighting. Sleek fighter jets had speed, but that speed often worked against them when targets were small, hidden, or moving in tight spaces. In contrast, the A-10's wide wings let it fly slowly without stalling, giving pilots time to circle, watch, and wait. Soldiers on the ground valued this loiter time because it meant they had cover overhead even during sudden ambushes in difficult terrain. The threats were constant. Insurgents relied on roadside bombs, rocket-propelled grenades, and heavy machine guns. Some even had access to old Soviet-made anti-aircraft weapons. While these could be deadly to helicopters or light planes, the Warthog was built for punishment. Its titanium armor, backup systems, and rugged design allowed it to keep flying after taking hits that would bring down most aircraft. Many A-10s came back to base full of holes, yet still able to fight another day. In Iraq, one big lesson stood out. Accuracy was more important than sheer power. Enemies often hid in plain sight, driving in regular cars and trucks mixed with civilians. Dropping bombs or firing missiles could harm innocent people. But the GAU-8 cannon provided pilots a way to hit their target with much more control. This made the A-10 especially useful in modern wars, where protecting civilians was just as important as defeating the enemy. Afghanistan brought a different test. Its high mountains, deep valleys, and far-off villages gave fighters plenty of places to hide and made moving supplies difficult. The Warthog adjusted to this challenge. It could take off and land on rough airstrips close to the action, instead of relying only on big bases far away. This meant it could refuel, rearm, and get back into the fight quickly, staying close to the ground troops who needed help. The sound of the Warthog was also a weapon on its own. Soldiers often said hearing it circle above gave them courage, knowing backup was near. For the enemy, that same sound was a warning. If they moved or showed themselves, they could be struck within seconds. This fear kept many fighters hidden or forced them to pull back. The A-10 also proved itself as more than a tank killer. In both wars, it destroyed mortar crews, artillery sites, hidden bunkers, and supply depots. It protected convoys, covered medical evacuations, and provided a shield for soldiers caught under fire. Its mix of endurance and heavy firepower made it more than an attack plane. It became a guardian for the troops it supported. Together, Iraq and Afghanistan solidified the Warthog's reputation as the specialist for close air support. Other jets may dominate dogfights or deliver high-speed bombing runs, but few can match the A-10's ability to fly low, absorb hits, strike precisely, and stay on station for hours. These qualities made it one of the most dependable aircraft in modern warfare. The lessons were clear. Survival, accuracy, and persistence matter more than sheer speed, or the newest technology when enemies hide among civilians or rugged terrain. The experience from these two wars showed why the A-10, despite its age, remains one of the most effective tools against heavily armed forces on the ground, no matter where the fight takes place. In Iraq and Afghanistan, the A-10 proved itself against trained fighters. That raises the question, what chance would a cartel convoy have? The Warthog was originally designed to wipe out Soviet tank columns during the Cold War. A cartel force, even one with improvised armor, would not last long under that kind of firepower. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon fires close to 4,000 rounds a minute, and each one can punch through thick steel. A line of trucks, pickups, or reinforced SUVs would be reduced to burning wreckage in seconds. Cartels often imitate military tactics. They weld steel plates onto vehicles, mount heavy weapons in truck beds, and travel in convoys meant to intimidate rivals. These tactics can overwhelm police units or even Mexican army patrols, but against the A-10, they would mean nothing. Vehicles that look threatening on the ground are easy targets from above. The Warthog can spot them, engage them, and destroy dozens in a single pass. Unlike fast jets, the A-10 is built to fly low, linger over the battlefield, and keep attacking until the job is done. That persistence was what made it so effective in Iraq and Afghanistan. Cartel groups, no matter how heavily armed, cannot counter that kind of pressure. Rockets, mortars, or rifles are no match for titanium armor and backup systems designed to survive direct hits from enemy tanks. This leads to a sensitive political issue. In recent years, Washington has debated whether the U.S. military should take direct action against cartels. Reports have shown that former President Donald Trump even signed a secret order telling the Pentagon to prepare for possible operations. Around the same time, cartels were officially labeled as foreign terrorist organizations, raising the possibility of military strikes at sea or on land. Mexico's government pushed back quickly. Officials stated that no American troops or aircraft would ever cross into Mexican territory. President Claudia Sheinbaum made it clear that cooperation would continue, but invasion was not on the table. Mexico stressed its sovereignty and flatly refused to allow foreign forces to operate on its soil. That meant that while intelligence sharing and border operations would move forward, the A-10 would never be used in official missions inside Mexico. This response highlights more than politics. It shows just how destructive the A-10 would be if it were unleashed on cartels. Police raids and small unit military actions are targeted and limited. The Warthog, on the other hand, delivers overwhelming force. A short mission could wipe out convoys, safe houses, or supply lines in minutes. The damage would be immense, and it would spill over far beyond one border. For that reason, cooperation has focused on other methods: intelligence, surveillance, and border security. Joint efforts track the flow of fentanyl, weapons, and migrants. Cartel finances are hit through sanctions, seizures, and tariffs. At the border, drug seizures, especially of fentanyl, have been cut nearly in half, and illegal crossings have dropped as enforcement tightened. These measures show the clear line between law enforcement and full-scale military power. Even so, the fact remains, if any cartel ever faced the A-10 directly, the fight would be over before it began. Convoys would be shredded, hidden compounds uncovered, and supply routes broken within hours. The Warthog was built for battlefields where tanks and anti-aircraft weapons filled the horizon. Against convoys of trucks and light arms, the result would be pure destruction. That is why planners may examine the idea but stop short of using it. The firepower is not just overwhelming, it is absolute. Facing the A-10 is not a battle, it is suicide. Iran made a decision that sent shockwaves across the globe. They fired ballistic missiles directly at the most significant American military base in the region. What makes this story even more fascinating is that despite the dramatic nature of the attack, something unexpected occurred. Every single Iranian missile was shot down before it could hit anything. Did their missiles fail because American defenses are simply that good? Or because Iran's much-feared arsenal isn't as dangerous as they've been claiming for years? Join us as we break down what really happened between Iran, the United States, and how the attack unfolded. When Iran launched a massive missile strike against Al Udeid Air Base, the biggest U.S. military facility in the Middle East, Iranian forces called it Operation Glad Tidings of Victory, sending dozens of ballistic missiles screaming toward the base in a coordinated assault that changed everything. This was not a minor border clash or proxy conflict. Iran had just fired directly at American forces, marking the most serious escalation between these two powers in decades. The attack came after recent U.S. airstrikes hammered Iranian nuclear sites, and now Tehran was hitting back hard. Al Udeid sits in one of the most critical spots on the global chessboard. The base hosts thousands of American troops and serves as a command center for operations across the region. When those missiles started falling, it sent shock waves far beyond the Middle East. The Iranian strike is bigger than just retaliation. It's a direct challenge to American military dominance in a region where both countries have been circling each other for years. What started as targeted strikes against nuclear facilities has now exploded into a direct military confrontation that could reshape the entire Middle East. Somewhere between 6 and 19 missiles tore through the night sky, heading straight for the base. The sight alone was enough to make anyone's heart stop. Dozens of incoming warheads that could have turned the facility into rubble and unalived hundreds of people. But then something incredible happened. Every single missile got knocked out of the sky. American air defense systems went to work, tracking each incoming threat and taking them down one by one. When the smoke cleared, the results were almost unbelievable. 0 casualties, 0 damage, and the base kept running like nothing happened. It was a flawless defensive performance that left military analysts scratching their heads. The big question everyone started asking was whether Iran actually wanted to hit anything at all. Some experts think the whole thing was more about sending a message than causing real destruction. Maybe Iran picked targets they knew would be heavily defended, or maybe they gave a warning through back channels. Either way, the attack failed if the goal was to hurt American forces or knock out the base. But if the goal was to show they could reach U.S. targets without starting World War III, then maybe it worked exactly as planned. But other experts see this completely differently. They think Iran seriously miscalculated and ended up looking weak instead of strong. Their missiles, which they've been bragging about for years, got swatted down like flies. If the goal was to project power, this backfired spectacularly. The attack definitely got everyone's attention across the Middle East. Countries in the region are watching closely to see how this plays out. But whether Iran looks more dangerous or more incompetent depends entirely on what they were actually trying to accomplish. Right now, nobody knows for sure if this was brilliant strategic messaging or a massive blunder that exposed serious weaknesses in Iran's military capabilities. The answer to that question could reshape how other countries view Iran's threats going forward. The American defense systems lit up the desert night like the 4th of July. Interceptor missiles launched one after another, tracking down every incoming threat and blowing them apart before they could hit anything. From miles away, it probably looked like some kind of fireworks show. Bright flashes and explosions scattered across the dark sky above Al Udeid. But down on the ground, everything stayed perfectly normal. No bomb craters appeared in the sand. The medical teams had nothing to do. Nobody got hurt, nothing got damaged, and life at the base went on like any other night. That is when military analysts started connecting the dots. This was not really an attack meant to destroy anything. Iran basically put on a show, launching enough missiles to make headlines, but doing it in a way that guaranteed they wouldn't actually hit their targets. Iran gets to say they retaliated against American forces, but nobody passed and nothing got destroyed. No dead soldiers means no pressure for massive retaliation. No damaged infrastructure means the conflict doesn't spiral completely out of control. It was like a perfectly choreographed dance where both sides knew the steps. Iran gets to look tough for their domestic audience, America gets to showcase their defense systems, and somehow nobody ends up starting World War III over it. This issue started after Operation Midnight Hammer with the American airstrikes that took out 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Iran had to respond somehow, but here's where it gets interesting. They basically told everyone exactly what they were planning to do. Intelligence sources later confirmed that Iran quietly tipped off both Qatar and the United States before launching those missiles. They gave a warning about the timing, the targets, everything. That's like calling someone to tell them exactly when and where a surprise party is happening. It defeats the entire purpose. Military strikes work because of surprise. Catch the enemy off guard, hit them before they can react, cause maximum damage with minimal warning. But Iran threw all of that out the window. They made sure American forces had plenty of time to get ready, activate all their defenses, and prepare for exactly what was coming. Once the Americans knew the missiles were coming, the whole thing turned into a completely different kind of event. Instead of a real military attack, it became more like a rehearsal where both sides knew their roles. Iran got to fire missiles and claim they hit back, while America got to show off how well its defense systems work. When both sides know exactly what's going to happen, it stops being warfare and starts being political theater. Iran needed to respond to those nuclear facility strikes, but they found a way to do it without actually starting a real war. President Trump didn't hold back when he addressed the nation about the missile attack. He basically called the whole thing a joke, describing it as a staged play instead of any kind of serious military action. Trump even sarcastically thanked Iran for giving everyone a heads up before launching their missiles. His mockery didn't stop there. Trump suggested that if this was Iran's idea of retaliation, maybe their military commanders needed to go back to school and learn how warfare actually works. The president's tone was completely dismissive, treating the entire incident like some kind of amateur hour performance. The numbers backed up Trump's ridicule. 0 missiles hit their targets, 0 damage to American equipment or facilities, 0 injuries to any personnel. The base kept running its normal operations the entire time, like nothing had even happened. From Trump's perspective, Iran had just handed him a perfect propaganda victory. They launched what sounded like a major attack, but accomplished absolutely nothing. Instead of looking strong and dangerous, Iran ended up looking incompetent and weak on the world stage. This missile attack might not have damaged any buildings or hurt anyone, but it hit something else that could be even more important: America's reputation for being tough when threatened. Here is the problem. When Iran can fire missiles at the biggest U.S. military base in the Middle East, and basically nothing happens to them in return, other countries take notice. Every time America lets something like this slide without hitting back hard, it makes the next attack more likely to happen. North Korea is definitely watching the situation. So is Russia, China too. These countries are all testing boundaries with America in different ways, and they're paying close attention to how each provocation gets handled. If firing missiles at American bases doesn't trigger serious consequences, what's to stop someone from trying something bigger next time? It is like dealing with bullies. Once they realize they can push someone around without getting punched back, they keep pushing harder. The same logic applies to hostile nations. Each successful provocation that goes unanswered makes the next escalation seem more reasonable and less risky. The missiles themselves didn't destroy anything tangible at Al Udeid Air Base, but they might have chipped away at something much more valuable: the fear that keeps America's enemies from taking bigger risks. When deterrence starts breaking down, that's when things can get really dangerous, really fast. Washington's slow reaction to the missile strike basically advertised American weakness to the entire world. When hostile countries see America taking time to think things over instead of hitting back immediately, it changes their calculations about what they can get away with. The math is pretty simple from their perspective. If America hesitates after getting attacked directly, maybe it'll hesitate again next time. Maybe they'll hesitate when something even bigger happens. That kind of thinking makes dangerous countries more willing to roll the dice and see what happens. This creates a snowball effect that keeps getting worse. Iran fires missiles and nothing major happens to them. North Korea sees this and thinks maybe they can get away with something too. Russia notices the pattern and decides to push a little harder somewhere else. Each time America doesn't respond with overwhelming force, the next country in line feels more confident about testing boundaries. The problem isn't just about Iran anymore. It's about every hostile nation watching how America handles direct attacks on its military. When enemies start believing America will talk instead of fight, they stop being afraid of American power. This cycle keeps feeding itself until someone finally pushes too far and forces a massive response. But by then, the damage to American credibility had already spread across multiple conflicts and regions. The world becomes less stable because everyone thinks America won't defend its red lines anymore. While Iran hoped to project strength through its missile demonstration, regional neighbors interpreted the attack very differently and responded with alarm rather than admiration. Qatar, which hosts Al Udeid Air Base and thousands of American troops, immediately condemned the strike as a violation of its sovereignty, since the attack essentially turned Qatari territory into a battleground without permission. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain quickly closed portions of their airspace and elevated their military alert levels, showing how Iran's actions had created fear rather than respect among the very countries it hoped to influence. The stock markets told the real story about Iran's missile attack better than any news report could. Oil prices barely budged when those missiles started flying, which is pretty incredible when it happens near the biggest American military base in the Middle East. Anytime missiles start flying around oil-producing regions, traders panic and energy prices shoot through the roof. Everyone assumes supply chains will get disrupted and conflicts will spread. That's been the pattern for decades. But this time was completely different. Oil prices actually dropped a little bit right after the attack, then just settled back to normal levels. Iran's missile strike backfired diplomatically, pushing away potential allies instead of rallying support for its cause. Diplomats from Jordan, Egypt, and Turkey privately expressed concerns about Iran's reckless decision-making, viewing the attack as a risky move that delivered no meaningful gains. This shift in regional perception creates a dangerous cycle for Iran, as growing isolation forces the country to rely more heavily on military demonstrations to project power, which only highlights its weaknesses further. The choice of target revealed a major tactical error that undermined Iran's entire operation. Al Udeid Air Base represents the most heavily defended United States installation in the Middle East, equipped with advanced radar systems and multiple layers of air defense technology. By targeting such a well-protected facility, Iran essentially guaranteed that its missiles would be intercepted, turning what should have been a show of strength into a demonstration of military inadequacy. The complete failure of the strike exposed serious flaws in Iran's missile capabilities and targeting systems. Every single missile was intercepted before reaching its target, resulting in zero destruction, zero injuries, and zero disruption to American military operations. For a country that wants recognition as a regional power, this kind of public failure damages credibility more than any diplomatic setback could. The attack raised questions across Europe and the Gulf states about Iran's actual military capabilities, rather than inspiring fear or respect. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers handled the entire operation. These aircraft were the only ones that could carry bombs big enough to punch through Iran's buried nuclear sites and actually destroy them. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed that the B-2s flew deep into Iranian territory and made it back without anyone detecting them. According to Hegseth, this was the longest B-2 mission since 2001 and the biggest B-2 strike ever conducted. The choice of aircraft made perfect sense. Iran had built these nuclear facilities underground specifically to protect them from regular bombing runs. Standard fighter jets simply don't carry the kind of massive bunker-buster bombs needed to crack through all that concrete and steel. Only the B-2 could handle this kind of mission. These stealth bombers can fly thousands of miles without being seen on radar, carry enormous payloads, and hit targets that other aircraft can't even reach. The fact that they completed such a long-range mission into heavily defended airspace and came home undetected shows exactly why America spent so much money developing these planes. The Northrop B-2 Spirit represents one of the most advanced military aircraft ever built. This American heavy strategic bomber uses something called low observable stealth technology, which basically means it can slip past even the most sophisticated enemy air defenses without being detected. Think of it like an invisibility cloak for aircraft. Enemy radar systems simply cannot see it coming. Most people know it simply as the stealth bomber, and it has become the go-to aircraft when America needs to strike targets that other planes could never reach. When it comes to firepower, the B-2 Spirit can carry an impressive arsenal of conventional weapons. These include standard Mark 82 and Mark 84 bombs, CBU-87 combined effects munitions, Gator mines, and the CBU-97 sensor-fused weapon. But the real game changer is its ability to carry the massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bomb designed specifically to destroy heavily reinforced underground bunkers. The B-2 can carry up to 2 of these massive weapons, one in each bomb bay, and as of 2012, it remains the only aircraft capable of deploying this devastating munition. The aircraft also features cutting-edge technology that makes it incredibly effective in combat situations. The low probability of intercept AN/APQ-181 multi-mode radar works as part of a sophisticated digital navigation system. This system includes terrain-following radar and global positioning system guidance, along with the NAS-26 astro-inertial navigation system that was originally developed in the 1950s. All of these technologies work together to help the aircraft navigate precisely to its targets while avoiding detection. Perhaps most importantly, the B-2 includes a defensive management system that constantly monitors for potential threats during missions. This system can automatically assess how dangerous different enemy defenses might be and recommend the safest routes to avoid them. Recent upgrades have made this system even more capable of detecting radar emissions from air defense systems and then feeding that information to an auto-router that can change the flight path in real time. This means the aircraft can automatically adjust its route to stay as safe as possible while completing its mission. Flying the B-2 Spirit is nothing like piloting a regular aircraft because of its unique flying wing design. This shape makes the plane naturally unstable in the air, similar to trying to balance a paper airplane that wants to tumble in every direction. To solve this problem, the B-2 uses an incredibly sophisticated quadruplex, computer-controlled, fly-by-wire flight control system. This means that computers are constantly making tiny adjustments to keep the aircraft stable without the pilot having to do anything. The pilot gives general commands about where to go, but the computers handle all the precise movements needed to keep the plane flying smoothly. The aircraft gathers information about flying conditions through special pitot-static sensing plates instead of the traditional pitot tubes found on most planes. Regular pitot tubes would stick out from the aircraft and show up on enemy radar, completely defeating the stealth design. These sensing plates measure things like airspeed and the angle of attack while staying completely flush with the aircraft's surface. The flight control system also includes both hydraulic and electrical components with multiple backup systems. So if one part fails, others can take over to keep the plane flying safely. Getting directional control on a stealth aircraft presented unique challenges because most traditional control methods would increase the radar signature. After testing various options, Northrop engineers settled on a combination of split brake rudders and differential thrust from the engines. This means the plane can change direction by using different power levels from its engines rather than relying entirely on visible control surfaces. Engine thrust became crucial not just for forward movement, but also for controlling how the aircraft pitches up and down and rolls from side to side. The B-2 has 4 pairs of control surfaces along the back edge of its wings, and different surfaces work at different times depending on flight conditions. Most of these surfaces operate throughout normal flight, but the inner elevons typically only activate during slow-speed situations like landing approaches. During takeoff, all the elevons stay drooped downward until the aircraft reaches sufficient airspeed. This prevents damage from ground contact and helps create the proper nose-down attitude needed for a successful takeoff sequence. Cartel's latest power play has shaken the game to its core. For decades, Mexican cartels ruled their syndicates through drugs, guns, and of course fear. But their latest move has shocked the world. They're no longer just traffickers. They've turned into tech-savvy war machines using drones, cyber attacks, and global alliances to outsmart nations. The world is stunned, and the U.S. now finds itself dangerously exposed. What exactly did the cartels do, and why could this be America's next major security nightmare? Join us as we unravel how Mexican cartels just shocked the world with a move that left the U.S. in real trouble. As Mexico's 2-decade war against drug cartels has worn on, cartel tactics have evolved. The groups have begun to focus not just on moving drugs to the United States as usual, but also on controlling territory inside Mexico. And this has led to intensified inter-cartel battles and the group's increased militarization. It's very obvious that cartels now operate more like insurgent groups than purely criminal organizations, employing tactics such as improvised explosive devices, drones, and the recruitment of foreign mercenaries, specifically from Colombia. As of May 2024, cartels controlled about 1/3 of Mexico's territory. Scary, isn't it? Now, the problem is that while this evolution is beneficial to cartel members, it poses a direct security threat to Mexico, the United States, and regional stability, and the masses are calling for a commensurate shift in policy. Mexico must continue to strengthen its security institutions, and the United States, as Mexico's most critical security and economic partner, must fundamentally reorient its policies to address how the flow of U.S. weapons fuels cartel violence. Now that Mexican drug cartels have evolved, it can only mean trouble. But who is at the receiving end? The U.S. has made policy after policy, trying to combat the surge of drug smuggling and cartel violence. But there doesn't seem to be any good progress. In fact, earlier this year, the Trump administration took it a step further by officially designating 8 Latin American cartels, including 6 from the neighboring country, Mexico, as foreign terrorist organizations for their major roles in drug smuggling and human trafficking into the United States. Surely the move, though unexpected, is a major escalation in the administration's efforts to cripple the cartels, as an FTO designation grants the administration access to enhanced counterterrorism authorities, such as the ability to launch covert operations authorized by the president. The FTO designation came only days after the Mexican Senate approved the presence of the U.S. Army's 7th Special Forces Group to conduct joint training with Mexico's elite Naval Marine Corps. The designation was meant to put the groups on the hot seat, since it's obvious that efforts would be intensified to nab them. And as if to prove that point, President Trump has signed a directive to the Pentagon to begin using military force against certain Latin American drug cartels that his administration has deemed terrorist organizations, according to people familiar with the matter. It can be said that the decision to bring the American military into the fight is the most aggressive step so far in the administration's escalating campaign against the cartels. It shows Donald Trump's continued willingness to use military forces to carry out what has primarily been considered a law enforcement responsibility to curb the flow of fentanyl and other illegal drugs. The order provides an official basis for the possibility of direct military operations at sea and on foreign soil against cartels. At the moment, U.S. military officials have begun drawing up options for how the military could pursue the groups. The people familiar with the conversation said, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive internal deliberations. The cartel groups have responded to the designation, and their response shocked the world. Remember how cartels now use technology to their advantage? Well, very recently, drones have become the main thing. Now, one might be thinking it's just a little drone, but here's the deal. These drones are not your average hobby. They are the kind of high-tech flying machines that are being used by some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. Yes, they're the Mexican drug cartels. Let's talk briefly about the numbers. They'll blow your mind. Every single month in the U.S. airspace, people are seeing over 1,000 of these unidentified drones crossing in. And if you think these are just random flights, you're mistaken. These are drones on missions, gathering intel on border patrol movements, scouting for weak spots in U.S. defenses, and even transporting drugs. But that's not the whole story. It gets worse. The infamous Sinaloa cartel is using drones in a whole new way just 2 miles south of the Arizona border. They're not just using them for spying or smuggling anymore. They're now turning these things into flying bombs, dropping explosives on rival gangs. Let that sink in. Many in the U.S. are wondering how cartel power got here. The evolution has been gradual, but it has kicked into high gear in recent years. As mentioned earlier, cartels have always been quick to adopt new technology. Remember those narco submarines? Well, drones are like the flying version of those. They're cheap, hard to detect, and can carry a decent payload. For cartels, it's a no-brainer. In record history, the first instance of a cartel using a weaponized drone was back in 2017. It happened when Mexican federal police did a routine stop on a car and found what they called a bazooka bomber drone. It was basically a drone rigged with explosives, ready to dive bomb its targets. It's honestly scary, but what's even more frightening is that that was just the beginning. Things took a turn for the worse when in 2021, cartels like the CJNG started using drones to attack police forces, and they're not even apologetic about it. One of their members even boasted that it's modern warfare, and so they use war technologies and use drones. According to the source, everybody in the cartel is adequately trained to use drones and other tech-enabled devices to the maximum. They are treating this like an actual war, and the US is on the receiving end. But then, it's not just about the bombs. The truth is that these drones are giving cartels a massive advantage in their smuggling operations. In the old days, one would have to rely on human lookouts or just hope for the best. Now the game is different. One can simply send up a drone and get a bird's-eye view of the entire area. It's now very easy to spot Border Patrol agents from miles away. It's like having a personal spy satellite. But here's the shocking part. Some of these cartels are getting training from Americans. One cartel source recently told the Daily Beast about how they learned drone functions. According to him, an American man actually trained cartel members on how to source, fly, and use these commercial drones. Not just that, he even taught them how to turn them into bombs. It's like the US is exporting drone warfare expertise to criminal organizations. Talk about a backfiring effort. Donald Trump wants to wipe out cartels, but his own people are training them instead. How ironic, but what does this really mean for the US? Because this isn't just Mexico's problem anymore. The US airspace is no longer safe as these drones are crossing daily, and it's not just talking about a few isolated incidents. Earlier in May, during a Senate Arms Committee hearing, one official dropped a news bomb, more like an invisible explosion. In his words, the number of incursions was something that was alarming to me. I don't know the actual number. I don't think anybody does, but it's in the thousands. And thus the number is just the data gathered over a single month. It goes without saying that cartels have practically infiltrated the US airspace with little to no consequence. And here's the actual trouble. The defenses of the United States are not built for this kind of threat. The Pentagon's detection systems were designed during the Cold War to spot big, slow-moving aircraft. They're about as useful against these small, nimble drones as a fly swatter against a stealth bomber. But beyond the physical threat these drones pose to the US, there's also a psychological aspect that's just as terrifying. Imagine living in a border town, knowing that at any moment a drone could be watching you. You can't see it, you can't hear it, but it's there, hovering silently, its camera trained on your every move. It's like living in a real-life version of 1984, where Big Brother isn't the government, it's the cartels. People are afraid of getting into a car, a taxi, or walking alone in the street, or of holding hands with others. This constant state of fear and paranoia is taking a toll on communities along the border. People are changing their routines, avoiding certain areas, even moving away altogether. It's like the cartels have managed to extend their reign of terror into the sky. And it's not just civilians who are feeling the pressure. Border Patrol agents are reporting increased stress and anxiety. They're trained to look for threats on the ground, but now they have to watch the skies constantly too. It's adding a whole new dimension to an already dangerous job. The adversaries have 17 times as many drones, twice as many flight hours, and unlimited funding to grow their operations. They're essentially fighting a war where the enemy has total air superiority, and that's a scary place to be. But here's where it gets even more frightening. There's growing concern among security experts that the US is now on the brink of a major escalation. Right now, most of these drones are being used for surveillance and small-scale drug trafficking. But what happens when the cartels decide to step things up? It's already been seen how the drones are used to drop bombs on rival gangs in Mexico. What's to stop them from doing the same thing on US soil? Because what the cartels have proven time and time again is that they'll do almost anything for money. Imagine a major US city like Arizona or San Diego. Suddenly, the sky is filled with drones. Not just a few, but hundreds. In an instant, chaos erupts. Explosions rock the city. Emergency services are overwhelmed. The military scrambles to respond, but they're not equipped to deal with this kind of threat. It's like a scene out of a disaster movie. This isn't just wild speculation. Military strategists and homeland security experts are actively wargaming these kinds of scenarios. The scary part is that the technology to pull this off already exists. Commercial drones can be modified relatively easily to carry small payloads. And with advances in artificial intelligence and swarming technology, it's becoming possible to control large numbers of drones with minimal human input. One of Mexico's most powerful cartels, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, has even created a specialized elite drone unit where members are trained to turn commercial drones into flying bombs to attack rivals and Mexican authorities. According to a report from the Daily Beast, if they are already doing this to attack rivals, What's to stop them from turning these tactics against U.S. targets? But there's more to the shock that Mexican cartels have for the U.S. Recently, a Mexican drug cartel hired a hacker to survey the movements of a senior FBI official in Mexico City, gathering information from the city's camera system that allowed the cartel to kill potential FBI informants, the Justice Department Inspector General said in a new report. The hacker was also able to view calls made and received by the FBI official, along with their geolocation data, in a major breach of operational security that occurred as the FBI was working on the case of former Sinaloa cartel boss Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, the Inspector General said. The hacker tracked people coming in and out of the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City before zeroing in on the FBI's Assistant Legal Attaché, a role that works closely with Mexican law enforcement, the report said, citing an FBI case agent at the time. The report did not identify the hacker. According to the case agent, the cartel used information provided by the hacker to intimidate and, in some instances, kill potential sources or cooperating witnesses. An Inspector General report, a broader review of the FBI's approach to protecting sensitive information and avoiding surveillance, revealed further details. The U.S. is not backing down just like that, too. The stunning new details offer a better look at how technology can be exploited in the high-stakes battle between U.S. law enforcement and the violent Mexican cartels that control the illicit drug trade. The Trump administration has made cracking down on cartels a national security priority, in part by declaring them as foreign terrorist groups. The FBI, DEA, and U.S. military have in recent years used advanced surveillance techniques to try to infiltrate Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the other big Mexican cartel that U.S. officials say smuggles large volumes of deadly fentanyl into the U.S. CNN reported in April that the CIA was reviewing its authorities to use lethal force against the cartels. With El Chapo now behind bars, the cartels themselves are increasingly run by a younger generation of tech-savvy drug lords. A senior DEA official previously told CNN that they had identified people in the cartels that specialize in cryptocurrency movements. The cartels run a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise and utilize sophisticated technology to enhance their business operations. They utilize state-of-the-art sophisticated surveillance techniques to identify law enforcement activities and their adversaries. The new Inspector General report raises bigger concerns about the threat of high-tech surveillance to U.S. national security. To show you just how much of a problem the U.S. has on its hands, the report also said that some within the FBI and partner agencies, such as the Central Intelligence Agency, have described this threat as existential. There have been long-standing risks posed by ubiquitous technical surveillance, jargon for the widespread availability of data to adversaries, in the FBI's criminal and national security cases, the report said. But recent advances in commercial technology have made it easier than ever for less sophisticated nations and criminal enterprises to identify and exploit vulnerabilities related to such surveillance, according to the report. The report said the FBI is working on a strategic plan to address some of the Inspector General's concerns about the Bureau's approach to the threat. But the question is, can the U.S. wipe out Mexican cartels? Well, some people believe that in reality, cartels are really employees of the Mexican and American governments, doing the dirty work and becoming scapegoats of a very profitable business model. Foreign policy 15 years ago forced Mexico into a war imposed by America to fight the cartels with American vehicles, training, guns, and ammo. The enemy was being armed by illegal trafficking of American guns, provided by the same government through different agencies in exchange for industrial amounts of drugs, mostly chemicals like fentanyl, others cooked in the worst places imaginable in Mexico, with Chinese precursors illegally imported into the country. Apparently, prohibition and drug control are a business model, not a public health matter. So why can't the USA barge into Mexico with the military and stop the cartels once and for all? Because it's bad for business and business is good. Besides, Mexico will never tolerate an invasion of its national sovereignty by the United States. President Claudia Sheinbaum issued a warning after Washington designated Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations. In other words, this cannot be an opportunity for the U.S. to invade our sovereignty. With Mexico, it is collaboration and coordination, never subordination or interventionism, and even less invasion. The Mexican president also said that Mexico would follow through on her promise to expand its legal action against the gun manufacturers in the United States after Trump took the bold decision to designate cartels as terrorist groups. The government of Mexico has accused U.S. arms makers of gross negligence in the sale of weapons that end up in the hands of drug traffickers. And Scheinbaum said the lawsuit could lead to a new charge of alleged complicity with terrorist groups. According to a report by 60 Minutes in December, an estimated 200,000 to 500,000 American firearms are smuggled into Mexico every year. A CBS Reports investigation in 2023 found that dozens of cartel gun-running networks, operating like terrorist cells, pay Americans to buy weapons from gun stores and online dealers all across the country, as far north as Wisconsin and even Alaska, according to U.S. intelligence sources. The firearms are then shipped across the southwest border through a chain of brokers and couriers. Mexico has already filed a lawsuit in the United States against U.S. arms manufacturers and vendors, claiming $10 billion in damages for their alleged role in criminal violence in the country. Earlier this month, Scheinbaum angrily rejected an accusation by the United States that her government has an alliance with drug cartels. She wrote on social media saying, "We categorically reject the slander made by the White House against the Mexican government about alliances with criminal organizations. If there is such an alliance anywhere, it is in the U.S. gun shops that sell high-powered weapons to these criminal groups," she added. In addition, President Scheinbaum launched a campaign to crack down on the number of weapons on the country's streets by offering cash to those who anonymously leave weapons at designated drop-off locations, including churches. And all the blame is on the United States. The truth is, this war has gone far beyond drugs. It's no longer about smuggling routes or street battles. It's about control, power, and survival now that cartels have learned to fight like nations. The U.S. is discovering that the enemy it once dismissed as disorganized criminals now wields technology, intelligence, and influence that rivals its own. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real shock. So has America already lost control of the war it started? Or is this just the calm before a storm? The United States Navy unleashed a weapon that has made drug cartels tremble in the Pacific. Hidden for years under top-secret programs, the laser system Helios strikes faster than any missile and costs mere dollars per shot. Could this technology finally turn the tide against billion-dollar smuggling networks? And what shocking footage reveals the true power of lasers at sea? Will the cartels ever recover? Join us as we find out what happens when the United States Navy's laser weapons go to battle against the cartels. The USS Preble was cutting through the Pacific in October 2024, carrying a weapon no warship had ever tested in real-world conditions. Buried under layers of secrecy sat the Navy's new high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance system, known simply as Helios. This was not just another piece of military hardware. It was about to prove itself in action for the first time. Naval intelligence had been following strange activity near the California coast. Small, fast boats were moving drugs at night, and whenever Coast Guard cutters moved in, drones suddenly appeared overhead. These weren't amateurs trying their luck. Cartel groups had turned smuggling into coordinated military-style operations. Their speedboats could push past 60 miles an hour while carrying loads of cocaine worth more than $20 million. Meanwhile, the drones circling above provided real-time video to handlers on shore. The result was that the cartels always seemed one step ahead, making traditional interdictions nearly useless. That was about to change. With Helios on board, the Navy no longer had to waste $4.3 million Standard Missile-6 interceptors on drones that cost only a few $1,000s each. Instead, the laser system could fire at a cost of about $13 per shot. The weapon drew 120 kilowatts directly from the ship's own electrical system, removing the need to carry ammunition or resupply mid-mission. The way it works is both simple and extraordinary. Fiber optic cables generate separate beams of light that are combined into one powerful stream. This method, called spectral beam combining, produces temperatures hot enough to burn through a steel engine or set a drone's body ablaze in seconds. Unlike missiles or bullets that travel through the air, laser energy moves at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Against Cartel speedboats, this meant instant results. Many of the engines contained aluminum parts that vaporized under the heat. Crews often abandoned ship the moment they saw smoke rising from the stern. The drugs, however, stayed on board, making it easier for authorities to recover the evidence and cripple billion-dollar trafficking routes. The system tracks its targets through a mix of thermal sensors and radar. Unlike conventional weapons, it never runs out of ammunition. That made it particularly effective against the drone swarms the cartels had started using to overwhelm border patrols. What once required multiple ships and costly interceptors could now be handled in seconds by a single vessel equipped with Helios. There were limits, however. The weather along the Gulf Coast sometimes made things tricky. Heavy moisture in the air could scatter the beam, forcing operators to adjust power or wait for conditions to improve. Smugglers were quick to adapt, timing large-scale runs to coincide with storm seasons when laser weapons were less reliable. Even with these challenges, the Navy is already looking ahead. Plans are in motion to expand Helios to 300 kilowatts for use on future DDGX destroyers and next-generation frigates. Right now, only larger ships with advanced power systems can support the huge energy and cooling requirements. Smaller patrol boats, which would benefit greatly, simply don't have the infrastructure to carry the system yet. Helios is also linked to the Aegis combat system, giving ships layered defenses against both air and surface threats. Its optical dazzler offers another option. Instead of destroying a target, it can blind cameras and sensors. That allows intelligence officers to capture cartel data without losing the chance to analyze it. Military leaders see directed energy weapons like Helios as the next step in naval warfare. The cost advantage alone is significant, neutralizing cheap but numerous threats without draining budgets. More importantly, the system keeps crews safe and ensures the Navy maintains control over contested waters. The footage from that October mission remains under wraps, but the signal to cartels and other adversaries is unmistakable. While laser systems at sea reshaped how navies intercept smugglers and drones, the skies required an entirely different kind of breakthrough. The real question became, what happens when the world's most expensive bomber is paired with a weapon that costs less than a cup of coffee to fire? The Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit, better known as the stealth bomber, carries a staggering price tag of about $2.1 billion per aircraft. Every mission burns through hundreds of thousands of dollars in fuel and support costs before the bomber even releases a single weapon. Conventional precision munitions only add to the expense. Air-to-ground missiles range anywhere from $100,000 to $4 million each. Military leaders started asking how long the United States could afford to fight drawn-out conflicts when opponents were fielding cheap drones and disposable hardware. That concern sparked a quiet but ambitious effort. Defense contractors began working laser technology into existing aircraft under classified upgrade programs. As part of its latest modernization, the B-2 Spirit received experimental laser pods designed to hit both ground targets and airborne threats. Instead of loading heavy racks of missiles or bombs, the system draws power directly from the plane's electrical generators. This cuts down payload weight and removes many of the limits imposed by conventional ordnance. The change in cost was staggering. Each laser shot came in at roughly $15. A bomber that once needed million-dollar cruise missiles to take out hardened targets could now destroy dozens for the cost of a single traditional warhead. For long campaigns against enemies with endless numbers but limited sophistication, the economics suddenly tilted sharply in America's favor. Adversaries, however, did not stand still. Many began deploying large swarms of cheap drones, launching them in the hundreds to overwhelm defenses. Conventional missile batteries quickly ran into a problem. Ammunition ran out fast, and each interceptor missile cost tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Analysts calculated that, over time, enemies could bleed American defenses dry simply by throwing waves of expendable machines into the fight. Laser weapons erase that problem. Because they rely only on power from the aircraft, they can fire continuously without running out of ammunition. As long as the generators keep producing electricity, the beam can keep firing. In practical terms, this gave bombers something close to unlimited ammunition. Nuclear-powered ships and advanced electrical grids provided even greater endurance for extended operations. The combination of the B-2's stealth and its new directed energy weapons created a tactical edge no adversary had faced before. Radar operators might detect the bright streak of a missile launch, but laser strikes left almost no trace, only a brief flash of heat when the target was hit. That meant bombers could destroy multiple threats without giving away their position to nearby defenses. There were limits, of course. Lasers are still shaped by the environment. Dust, moisture, and rain scatter the energy beam and reduce its reach. Mission planners now include detailed weather forecasts in their operational checklists. On clear nights with dry air, the system is at its most lethal. This shift has already begun to influence how money is spent. Budgets that once poured into producing mountains of ammunition are being redirected into developing higher output lasers and more powerful generators to sustain them. The focus is moving from stockpiling shells and missiles to investing in renewable energy systems that can keep weapons firing as long as the plane remains airborne. Bomber crews are also being retrained. Unlike traditional bombs, lasers don't explode on impact. They require steady, precise contact with a target for several seconds. Pilots now practice flying patterns that hold beams on moving objects, while operators train on power management to make sure the weapons never drain the system during intense engagements. The shift represents more than just new technology. Strategists see it as a change in how wars will be fought and financed. Victory in modern conflict depends not only on advanced weapons, but also on the ability to fight for months or years without exhausting resources. With the B-2 Spirit now carrying directed energy systems, the United States military has shown that it is preparing for that future, one where cost-effective firepower and technological superiority go hand in hand. In the Red Sea, Iranian-backed forces discovered a profitable new market when Mexican cartels offered cryptocurrency in exchange for modern weapons. The Houthis, already armed with drones, guided munitions, and electronic warfare systems, found eager buyers in organizations flush with cash from fentanyl sales. With billions generated annually through drug trafficking, cartels could afford battlefield-proven equipment that American law enforcement had never faced at home. The trade was managed through encrypted networks overseen by Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers in Yemen. Cartels supplied chemical precursors for explosives, while in return they received completed drones, radar jammers, and even anti-ship missiles. These deals bypassed black market arms dealers and avoided international sanctions designed to stop dangerous weapons from spreading to non-state actors. By early 2024, Houthis were attacking United States Navy destroyers in the Red Sea with kamikaze drones and cruise missiles. Within months, similar systems surfaced along the Texas border. Border Patrol agents began to encounter drone swarms flying in formation, copying the same tactics seen overseas against commercial shipping. What had once been fast boat smuggling runs evolved into militarized campaigns. Cartels now fielded drones with thermal cameras for surveillance, jammers to cut police radios, and even explosive-laden suicide drones used against rivals. This level of sophistication posed a crisis that ordinary policing could not contain. Iranian advisors deepened the threat by training cartel fighters directly. In camps hidden across Mexico and Central America, former Houthi drone operators taught everything from electronic warfare to coordinated strike tactics. These programs produced a new generation of cartel technicians who could build, maintain, and deploy weapons that rivaled those used in war zones. The network came to light when United States intelligence traced cryptocurrency movements, linking cartel accounts to Middle Eastern operators. Investigators matched payment schedules to known Houthi weapons purchases, proving that American drug demand was indirectly funding militants engaged in live combat with United States forces abroad. Soon, American police and border units began reporting weapons they had never seen outside of combat zones, night vision devices built for the battlefield, encrypted satellite communications, and armor-piercing ammunition. Local shootouts started to resemble clashes in foreign war zones, with gangs wielding tools meant to fight national militaries. Financial assessments confirmed the core problem. Cartels now commanded revenues greater than the defense budgets of many nations. With money on that scale, they could buy nearly any weapon on the global market. This economic power meant that criminal organizations inside the United States borders had the resources of a hostile state, turning a law enforcement challenge into a national security emergency. While Iranian weapons continued moving south through established channels, Mexican cartels were busy building something that caught intelligence agencies completely off guard. The pressing question became, what happens when criminal organizations begin producing military hardware faster than governments can track it? Using just the profits from a single fentanyl shipment valued at around $200 million, cartels set up underground aerospace manufacturing sites. These weren't makeshift workshops or hobbyist drone operations. They were full-scale facilities staffed with engineers who had once worked for legitimate defense contractors. Production lines inside disguised warehouses and abandoned mines were turning out as many as 50 advanced unmanned aerial vehicles every month, hidden from satellite detection by carefully built hangars and underground infrastructure. The Sinaloa cartel also managed to purchase 12 Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drones, aircraft already proven on battlefields in Ukraine and Syria. Instead of mounting explosives, cartel technicians reconfigured the payload bays to carry up to 500 pounds of compressed fentanyl. A single flight could deliver enough narcotics to saturate the East Coast drug market for half a year. The cartel's surveillance capacity transformed almost overnight. Persistent drone patrols equipped with thermal sensors and secure communication links provided constant updates on border patrol movements, high-altitude balloon locations, and law enforcement patrol patterns. Coordinated formations used artificial intelligence software originally designed for military swarm tactics, giving cartels real-time command over wide stretches of the border. Materials science also became part of their playbook. Factories began producing airframes out of carbon fiber and other advanced composites, giving drones more speed and endurance compared to aluminum-bodied aircraft. Many suppliers who sold the raw materials assumed they were dealing with ordinary commercial buyers and never questioned the unusual order volumes. Quality standards inside these underground factories rivaled those found in legitimate aerospace production lines. Cartel ingenuity extended into the seas as well. Narco submarines, once crude vessels for smuggling, evolved into autonomous carriers able to launch aerial drones while submerged. This created layered surveillance networks that existing interdiction methods could not detect, much less disrupt. Each submarine carried as many as 20 small drones, each with the endurance to remain airborne for more than 8 hours. Electronic warfare soon entered the picture. During clashes with rivals and law enforcement, cartels began deploying jammers and radar spoofing equipment. These systems disrupted police communications and even interfered with civilian aviation networks during smuggling runs. Much of the hardware and training came directly from Iranian sources, with instructors operating from bases in Central America. Autonomy made the threat even more dangerous. New targeting systems allowed drones to identify and pursue vehicles or people without any human operator in control. Facial recognition programs and vehicle matching algorithms enabled aircraft to track targets across state lines for days at a time. Police suddenly faced flying weapons that behaved more like hunter-killer machines than surveillance tools. By the early 2010s, the global drone market was worth an estimated $42 billion, and cartels were a part of it. Through front companies, they poured money into universities, startups, and artificial intelligence firms. Many researchers never realized their civilian projects were being adapted for cartel weapons programs. With mass production, costs plunged. Each combat-ready drone could be built for under $10,000. That meant a single drug shipment worth $50 million could finance as many as 5,000 drones. This direct link between narcotics profits and weapons development created exponential growth in cartel military strength. For the United States military, few options remained. Conventional airstrikes against these hidden factories risked heavy civilian casualties in densely populated areas. Strategic bombers armed with precision lasers emerged as the only realistic counter. Unlike explosive munitions, directed energy weapons could destroy underground entrances, manufacturing equipment, and command centers with surgical accuracy, carrying out strikes inside the United States territory without triggering the kind of devastation that traditional weapons would cause. Cartel breakthroughs in drone technology grabbed headlines, but America's investment in laser weapons gave the United States a clear advantage. Unlike missiles or conventional guns, directed energy systems have a major edge. They perform best in the very conditions that smugglers depend on. In many ways, nature itself has become an ally for the United States' defense. Could the very skies the cartels rely on actually be working against them? By 2023, military planners had figured out how to use weather and air conditions to know when lasers would work best. Some people pointed out possible limits, but in fact, these conditions usually gave the United States an advantage over the cartels. Clear skies, low humidity, and stable temperatures, the most common conditions along key border areas, allow lasers to strike targets with pinpoint accuracy, almost instantly. The deserts of Arizona and New Mexico tell a similar story. Cartels counted on heat to shield their drones, but the clear desert air helps lasers travel unimpeded. With minimal moisture or clouds, targets can be disabled long before they cross into United States territory. In this setting, dry landscapes became a natural ally for defense forces. Altitude works similarly. The higher a drone flies, the thinner the air becomes, meaning there's less to block or scatter the laser beam. This allows military lasers to stay tightly focused, deliver more energy to their target, and hit with devastating precision. Ironically, cartel drones trying to escape by flying higher only made them more visible to United States sensors, making it easier for operators to track, target, and disable them. The weather could pose a challenge. Fog, dust, heavy storms, or sudden rain showers can scatter light and slightly reduce a laser's effectiveness. Yet the United States systems are built to handle these obstacles. Satellites and radar provide real-time tracking, while conventional interceptors back up the lasers when nature tries to interfere. On most days, clear skies, dry air, and stable temperatures give American defenses a natural advantage. By the end of the day, the cartel's massive investments in drones rarely paid off. Instead of shielding them, the atmosphere often magnified the effectiveness of the United States' lasers. Sunlight, desert air, and thin, high-altitude conditions became silent allies, turning the sky into a vast, invisible extension of America's shield, a force the cartels could neither hide from nor fight. The cartels thought their drones and smuggling tricks gave them an advantage, but the United States Navy's laser weapon changed that. Quiet, accurate, and powerful, it turns the skies the cartels counted on into a place they can't control. After years of speculation, people around the world can finally see the United States Navy's laser weapon in action against cartel operations. For the first time, the power, speed, and precision of this technology are on full display. It shows how modern weapons can stop threats almost instantly without the need for traditional explosives or bullets. The lesson is clear. The future of fighting crime and warfare has arrived, and the balance of power has shifted in favor of those who can control the skies. Cartels have evolved. Now they fly drones, armor up convoys, and even test homemade submarines to smuggle cash and weapons. But what happens when the world's most advanced military tech faces that cunning? Could these futuristic tools finally give authorities the upper hand and change the rules of the game forever? Join us as we uncover these anti-Mexican cartel military technologies that will blow your mind. Across Mexico, the country's most powerful cartels are locked in a brutal arms race that's changing the drug war. They're not only fighting government troops under U.S. pressure to crush the drug trade, but also battling one another for control of smuggling routes. Civilians are caught in the crossfire, and once quiet regions have turned into war zones. Gone are the days when these groups relied only on handguns and rifles. Today, cartel fighters use rocket-propelled grenades, homemade mortars made from gas tanks, and trucks fitted with heavy machine guns. They bury landmines, scatter booby traps, and modify store-bought drones into flying bombs packed with toxic gas and explosives. Authorities in Michoacan recently showed piles of makeshift bombs built from plastic bottles, fire extinguishers, and even cut drain pipes, proof of how creative and deadly the cartels have become. These groups now possess the kind of weapons used by terrorists and armies. According to Mexican officials, much of that firepower comes from across the border, with around 500,000 American guns smuggled into Mexico every year. Criminals have also begun making their own weapons, even using 3D printers to build parts. Nowhere shows this deadly transformation more clearly than Tierra Caliente, a region of mountains and farmland that serves as a vital drug corridor. There, rival cartels, including La Familia Michoacana, the Knights Templar, and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, are locked in a constant fight for control. In the past 2 years, Michoacan has recorded more mine explosions than anywhere else in Mexico, Farming towns that once grew avocados and lemons now sit half empty. Many families have fled after repeated attacks, while those who stay live under constant threat. More than 2,000 people have been displaced in just 2 years. Even children have died from hidden explosives buried along their paths to school. This level of militarization can be traced back to the mid-2000s, when Los Zetas, a cartel founded by former soldiers, introduced military tactics, encrypted radios, and battlefield discipline to organized crime. Their rivals quickly copied them, turning the drug trade into a full-scale war. In response, Mexico's military brought in better weapons and technology, often with U.S. support. The turning point came in 2015 when gunmen in Jalisco shot down a Mexican Army helicopter with a rocket launcher, killing 6 soldiers. It was the first time a criminal group had destroyed a military aircraft in Mexico, a sign that the cartels had crossed into true paramilitary territory. By 2022, Mexican intelligence confirmed that cartels were using drones, landmines, and coordinated attacks regularly. Security analyst Alexei Chavez called it a shift toward paramilitary warfare. Cheap, easy-to-modify drones have changed the battlefield. Like in Ukraine, cartels now use them to spy, bomb, and strike with precision. Even the drones have given the cartels the power to hit deep inside enemy territory, targets that were unreachable before. As tensions grow with Washington, cartels have begun importing scanners to detect government drones and hiring skilled operators to track and evade them. It's obvious that the battlefield is evolving, and so are the tools used to fight it. To counter those new defenses, authorities have begun repurposing existing kits for the fight. Among these tools are the compact-armed VTOL drones, which are deadly effective when deployed against smugglers. These drones lift straight up, hover over rough ground, and fire precision rounds at moving or fixed targets, letting security forces strike cartel convoys or fortified positions without sending troops into deadly ambushes. That standoff capability is vital because it reduces risk to patrols and allows focused disruption of cartel movement. Lightweight laser-guided missiles that small drones can carry bring true anti-vehicle power to units that once had none. These weapons can punch through light armor, stop pickup trucks used for smuggling, and force cartel fighters to abandon heavy shields. When ground teams lack armored support, a few precision missiles on demand deny enemy freedom of movement and fragment supply lines, slowing trafficking and making territory harder for cartels to hold. Precision coastal and anti-armor missiles extend the reach of tactical policing. Compact missiles with accurate guidance let forces hit hardened caches, improvised launch sites, or boats running the coast without broad bombardment. That accuracy keeps civilian harm lower and gives commanders options to remove key cartel assets at distance, a major advantage when cartels hide among civilian infrastructure. Defensive tools like handheld drone net launchers keep soldiers and police safer from hostile UAVs. Nets bring down small attack drones quickly and cheaply, blocking cartel reconnaissance and crude bombing. By denying cartels easy drone use, these countermeasures blunt one of the fastest-growing threats and protect checkpoints, convoys, and airspace over towns. Heavy-lift electric VTOLs and tandem-rotor small aircraft change logistics in hard countries. They carry supplies, batteries, medevac loads, sensors, or a small squad to remote villages without creating long, vulnerable convoys. That mobility shortens response times, keeps pressure on cartel hideouts, and lets security forces maintain presence where roads are mined or watched by lookout posts. Tethered aerostats and low-cost persistent sensors act as fixed sentries over river valleys, roads, and farms. Left aloft for days, they spot convoy routes and transient camps, turning fleeting movements into confirmed targets. Persistent surveillance lets force time raids for moments when cartel fighters are exposed, increasing the chance of capturing leaders and seizing drugs rather than trading gunfire in populated areas. Layered systems matter most when combined. Persistent eyes detect, small VTOLs inspect and strike, counter-drone tools protect forces, and heavy lifts move teams quickly. That layered approach shortens the decision loop. Find, fix, finish. For anti-cartel campaigns, this lowers collateral damage, raises arrest rates, and makes it harder for gangs to hide logistics in the hills or move product through towns. Cost and training are practical strengths. Small drones and net guns are cheaper to buy and operate than attack helicopters or large missile systems, so police and military units can field them broadly. Widespread deployment denies cartels safe spaces and forces them to change tactics, a strategic pressure point that undermines their ability to operate at scale. Building on that same idea of affordable innovation, a helium surveillance balloon offers another edge. Able to stay aloft for up to 20 days, it becomes a cheap, persistent eye over contested valleys. Launched in minutes and able to watch a 10-kilometer circle while extending FPV drone links twice that far, it turns fleeting movement into patterns you can act on. For the war against cartels, persistence matters. Cartels move at night, hide caches in folds of terrain, and rotate teams quickly. A long-endurance balloon reveals routes and camps that ground patrols miss, letting forces plan raids with better timing and fewer surprises. Which is why mobility is important for officials. A small, all-terrain robotic scout operating up to 15 kilometers out gives operators an unmanned forward presence, and because it can run at 60 kilometers per hour for hours on a single charge while carrying modular sensors or light payloads, it scouts roads, sniffs for traps, and carries tiny strike or recovery kits. That matters in practice. The robot keeps people out of the danger zone and finds IEDs or ambush points before a patrol stumbles into them, so units move smarter, not harder. Meanwhile, armored personnel carriers built for modern conflict protect troops and press into contested towns. A 15-ton, remotely turreted APC resists rifle rounds and shrapnel while delivering automatic fire from distance, which lets security forces clear hostile compounds with lower risk, deny cartel checkpoints, and shield medevacs and evidence teams, protecting lives while stripping cartel freedom of action. At the same time, short-range air defense systems that fire radar-guided missiles close a major gap. Low-flying aircraft and attack drones. Because a mobile point defense unit reaches several kilometers day or night, it can intercept helicopters and armed UAVs before they reach a strike zone, stopping aerial resupply and forcing gangs to change tactics. And when infantry need immediate protection, portable electronic weapons step in. Lightweight anti-drone rifles pulse electromagnetic interference a few kilometers out to drop hostile quadcopters and scramble swarms, which means checkpoints, convoys, and urban raids are less likely to be watched from above, keeping evidence gathers, informants, and movements safer. Layer these pieces together and you get a low-collateral, layered toolkit. Long loiter balloons and fixed sensors pick a target. Robotic scouts or low-risk drones confirm and market. Precision systems or armored vehicles finish the job. That approach reduces civilian harm, raises the odds of capturing leaders alive, and closes escape routes, hitting cartel logistics instead of only foot soldiers. Cheap, fast tools change the map. So do cheap, fast logistics. When cost and speed let more units move and fight, mobility stops being a luxury and becomes a multiplier for every other tactic. This is where the French EPA amphibious rig comes into play. The French EPA amphibious rig moves across rivers and marshes like a workhorse that ignores water. Able to ferry 70 tons on its own or pair with another to haul 150 tons, it can lay a temporary bridge of 100 meters in under 10 minutes. In the war against cartels, that rapid river crossing power keeps supply lines open for security forces, lets reinforcements reach remote strongholds fast, and prevents gangs from using water barriers as safe escape routes. When roads are wrecked or bridges destroyed, 4 of these rigs can create a crossing that passes 200 vehicles an hour. At over 30 meters long and with a large loading surface, a crew of 4 can run multiple crossings per hour and sustain an offensive or humanitarian corridor. For anti-cartel campaigns, that means convoys of evidence teams, armored patrols, and emergency medical units can move reliably where cartels try to isolate communities and block state access. Thermal camouflage changes the game for small teams operating near cartel hideouts. A lightweight thermal umbrella or ghost hood masks heat signatures over several square meters and works across bitter cold to blistering heat. In the war against cartels, hiding heat signatures keep surveillance drones and infrared scouts from spotting insertion points or observation posts, letting special forces gather evidence and place trackers without turning the mission into a firefight. Discreet personal protection also matters. A compact bulletproof umbrella and a rapid deploy ballistic blanket give immediate cover for 1 or 2 people, stopping common pistol and magnum rounds while looking ordinary. In anti-cartel operations, such gear protects undercover officers, witness protection escorts, and journalists in ambush-prone towns, saving lives while preserving mobility and the element of surprise during extractions or raids. Larger perimeter systems, like an integrated anti-drone shield, provide broad protection for bases and checkpoints. A 200-kilogram station with radar and electro-optical sensors spots hostile UAVs out to 5 kilometers and links to jammers for rapid defeat. For the war against cartels, this means forward operating sites, evidence processing camps, and medical hubs can stay online without constant drone harassment or remote observation that would give gang scouts an edge. You can shut down enemy eyes in the air and harden forward hubs, but who actually carries the mission into remote, contested terrain? Enter the Mission Master, a rugged robotic pack mule which can be repurposed for anti-cartel operation. This 2,000-kilogram unmanned ground vehicle carries up to 600 kilograms of supplies at 40 kilometers per hour across a 200-kilometer range. Equipped with a 7.62 millimeter machine gun, it provides both logistics and fire support in combat zones. With over 24 hours of battery life using a range extender, this 3.5-meter beast handles extreme conditions from desert heat to Arctic snow and swims thanks to amphibious capability. Its autonomous navigation, obstacle avoidance, and drone integration allow it to scout, resupply, and fight without putting humans in harm's way, making it perfect for anti-cartel operations where every minute counts. While Mission Master hauls the Overland AI Ultra Ventures where humans dare not go. Weighing 1,500 kilograms, this autonomous vehicle speeds at 50 kilometers per hour over a 150-kilometer range in contested areas beyond line-of-sight communication. Carrying 500 kilograms of mission-specific payload, it uses AI-driven navigation and target recognition. Even when GPS signals are jammed, it can deploy reconnaissance drones, becoming a mobile command center for surveillance, logistics, and combat. For cartels operating in remote terrain, it's a game changer, allowing security forces to monitor and respond to threats before criminals even know they are observed. At sea, the Petria Sanaka CS is a 200-kilogram acoustic mine countermeasure system. Using low-frequency sound waves, it detects and neutralizes underwater mines up to 500 meters away. Deployable from ships or unmanned surface vehicles, it works in harsh environments, including Arctic waters, ensuring safe maritime patrols and anti-smuggling operations. This sonar system makes waterways safe for naval interdiction teams, allowing them to reach cartel trafficking routes without risk. The Capstone UAV acts as a flying ambulance. Using coaxial rotors with 2 5-meter blades, it carries 300 kilograms of payload across 483 kilometers during 8-hour missions. Designed for medical evacuation and resupply in areas inaccessible to traditional helicopters, it autonomously lands and flies while keeping crews safe. In the cartel war, Capstone ensures injured officers or civilians receive rapid aid in dangerous zones, saving lives while minimizing risk. The American Millennium Gun protects ships from low-flying threats. Weighing 3,300 kilograms, it fires 35-millimeter rounds at 1,000 per minute in full auto or 200 per minute for precision. With ranges of 3,500 meters for air targets and 5,000 meters for surface targets, programmable airburst rounds make it a no-fly zone. Cartel drones or small boats attempting attacks are neutralized before they become a threat. For field fortifications, the Maxi Printer 3D prints bunkers up to 6 meters high and 12 meters wide in 24 hours. Setup takes under 15 minutes with centimeter-level precision. Meanwhile, RAL's plastic trench system allows modular defensive positions to be assembled silently in under 2 hours. Together, they let troops quickly secure territory against cartel incursions. But building protection is only half the battle. Holding it demands accuracy and awareness. That's where next-generation targeting and clearance tools come. and precision gets surgical with the Smash 2000 LAI scope, a compact 1.1 kilogram sight that lands hits on small drones with a 95% probability out to 300 meters. On the ground, danger is buried, which is why the Doing MV-10 exists, an 18,960 kilogram mine-clearing beast that strips away 4,000 square meters of mines each hour, while operators stay a full kilometer back. Together, they shrink the kill zone and let units move when cartels think the Earth is their ally. Once routes are safe, the fight follows the traffickers into the water. Meet the Shadow Seal, a stealthy amphibious craft that makes ordinary boats look clumsy. At 12 meters and 5 tons, it roars across the surface at 55 kilometers per hour and slips beneath at 9. With room for a pilot, navigator, and 2 passengers, and remote control capability, even from a PlayStation-style controller, it slips into shallow coastal lanes and choke points where smugglers hide, turning the ocean from a blind alley into a hunted space. On land, the Mars, the modular advanced armed robotic system, acts like a relentless mechanical bodyguard. This 165-kilogram, 1.1-meter-tall robot can carry a 7.62-millimeter machine gun or a 40-millimeter grenade launcher and operate securely from up to 1 kilometer away. With full 360-degree vision, it scouts, clears danger zones, evacuates the wounded, and ferries supplies along hot routes, keeping people out of the most dangerous jobs in the anti-cartel campaign. When rooms and tunnels must be checked, Bounce Imaging's throwable camera sphere makes the first steps safe. Softball to grapefruit size, the rugged orb delivers live, full 360 video and infrared for low-light ops, survives hard impacts, and streams to Android and iOS devices for roughly 2 hours. A tiny, brave eye that saves lives during breaches and compound searches. Farther out, the Saildrone Surveyor watches the sea without sleeping. This 20-meter autonomous vessel runs on wind and solar for up to 12 months, carrying 500 kilograms of sensors while cruising at 13 kilometers per hour. Radar, sonar, cameras, and seafloor mapping to 11,000 meters turn long stretches of ocean into monitored lanes, spotting hidden routes and trailing smugglers before cargo ever reaches shore. And when logistics and endurance decide outcomes, the mission master answers the call. This 2,000-kilogram unmanned ground vehicle hauls 600 kilograms at 40 kilometers per hour across a 200-kilometer range, runs more than 24 hours on extended power packs, and even offers amphibious capability. As an anti-cartel robotic logistician, it moves gear, evacuates casualties, and keeps convoys lighter, faster, and less exposed to ambush. Stacked together, these systems, precision scopes, mine-clearing giants, stealthy amphibious craft, armed robots, throwable scouts, long-endurance sail drones, and heavy unmanned transport, form a layered, relentless network against mobile, well-armed criminal networks. Mexico's war against powerful drug cartels has tested the limits of law enforcement and military strategy. But as cartel groups grow smarter, using drones, armored vehicles, and even homemade submarines, the fight has taken an unexpected turn. Now, whispers of U.S. military involvement have stirred global attention. Could America's most advanced naval aircraft carrier actually be used in this battle? And what would it mean if the skies over Mexico became a new kind of war zone? Join us as we uncover how the U.S. Navy's genius air strategies could reshape the war against Mexico's cartels. When Claudia Sheinbaum became Mexico's first female president on October 1st last year, her toughest challenge was far from politics. Just months before her inauguration, reports surfaced that major Mexican cartels were showing off advanced weapons, including the American-made FGM-148 Javelin missile launcher, a system powerful enough to destroy tanks or bring down helicopters. 2 Javelins were reportedly seized from a cartel, and a recent helicopter crash that killed a security chief may not have been an accident. A former Mexican mercenary claims the crash was caused by a Javelin strike, and forensic experts say the weapon fragments recovered match that missile's signature. Armed with heat-seeking launchers, miniguns, and landmines, over 2,800 of which have been found since 2018, the cartels now resemble well-equipped militias rather than street gangs. For almost 20 years, Mexico has been locked in a brutal war with powerful drug cartels. Despite heavy crackdowns and military raids, the violence only evolved. Streets have turned into battlegrounds where law enforcers and civilians are caught in the crossfire and have also become targets. Since the government declared war on the cartels in 2006, more than 460,000 people have lost their lives. The cartels are deliberately flaunting their firepower to send a message to President Claudia. They're ready to fight anyone who challenges their power. With the U.S. lawmakers already calling for military intervention across the border, this move could spark an even bloodier conflict. The United States has long been involved in Mexico's fight, seeing it as part of its own war on drugs. Washington has spent billions helping Mexico strengthen its police and military forces, update its justice system, and invest in projects meant to reduce illegal migration and joblessness, which was the root of the crisis. On the border, U.S. agents are always working around the clock to block the flow of drugs streaming north. Now, with violence surging once again, President Claudia Sheinbaum faces a harsh reality, and that is, Mexico's war has become a fight not just for territory, but for survival itself. As the chaos deepens, attention naturally shifts north of the border. Many wonder how far the United States might go to contain the violence threatening to spill across. Washington has the tools and the experience to strike hard and fast. Yet the question isn't about capability anymore, but consequence. The U.S. military has shown it can carry out dramatic strikes far from home. Recent operations against groups in the Middle East prove that high-tech air power can reach deep into enemy territory and reshape a fight quickly. But copying those moves in Mexico would be dangerous for reasons that matter to planners and troops alike. Distance and politics all change the rules. Attacks on facilities thousands of miles away let the U.S. act where the local state is weak or absent. When a country has little control, a short, sharp strike can remove a threat without dragging in local politics. In Mexico, that model breaks down. The two countries share a long, populated border, and Mexico is a functioning state. Military action there risks pulling the Mexican government and its people into an open conflict on their soil. One key danger is blowback. Foreign strikes sometimes trigger limited revenge or bargaining by the target, calculated to avoid wide war. But cartel networks are different. They are criminal businesses with many armed cells, local influence, and a deep grip on communities. Kill or capture one leader, and others scramble to fill the gap. That scramble often sparks internal wars, bloody reprisals, and new crime tactics. Planners cannot predict how cartel bosses, lieutenants, or rival groups will react once pressure rises. Scale matters too. In past Mideast operations, the target and objective were clear: stop missile launches, slow a nuclear program, or protect shipping. Some of those goals could be tied to a single well-planned strike or a limited campaign. Against cartels, targets are diffuse: labs, airstrips, cash flows, and hidden networks spread across towns and terrain. Destroy enough of that network, and you risk creating a long-term security vacuum where smaller gangs flourish and violence spikes. There is also the question of proximity and consequence. A 2,000-mile common border is not a buffer. Violence in northern Mexico spills into U.S. towns, trade routes, and migrant flows. Heavy-handed operations on Mexican soil could make large parts of the border zone hard to govern, repeating the chaos seen during past crackdowns. That chaos included assassinations, mass killings, and a rise in homicides, outcomes that don't serve either capital. Domestic politics and public opinion feel the sting too. Open U.S. military action in Mexico would divide opinion at home, fuel protests, and strain relations with an ally. It could also draw in hostile outside actors who see an opportunity to distract the United States and expand their own reach by supporting or exploiting the violence. Smart response needs planning beyond a single missile shot. Military planners must map likely cartel counter-moves, protect civilians, and prepare for messy, follow-on effects. That means combining law enforcement, targeted strikes if ever needed, intelligence work, and support for the Mexican state, not a unilateral invasion. A strategy should aim to keep Mexican institutions intact while degrading criminal power without opening a new front of violence. This evolving battlefield demands more than ground tactics. It calls for innovation in every domain. As cartels expand their reach and weapon sophistication, the lines between crime and combat blur faster than ever. The threat now extends beyond checkpoints and safe houses, pushing the conflict into a new dimension, one that involves sophisticated military technology like the USS Gerald R. Ford. The Pentagon sent shockwaves through the defense world when it announced that the United States would deploy its most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to the Caribbean. The move marked a major escalation in the Trump administration's campaign against Latin American drug cartels, a deviation from targeting boats at sea to preparing for possible strikes on land. The Gerald R. Ford is the crown jewel of the U.S. Navy, a floating fortress carrying stealth fighters, advanced radar, and a full complement of support ships. As the carrier wrapped up its Mediterranean deployment, it was redirected toward the coast of Venezuela. Defense officials said the goal was simple: to increase America's reach and firepower in one of the world's busiest drug trafficking corridors. The carrier strike group isn't just a show of strength. It brings dozens of F-35 fighter jets capable of stealth attacks and precision strikes. These aircraft could neutralize enemy radar and air defense systems in Venezuela, clearing the path for U.S. Special Operations Forces or drones to move in and hit ground targets. The F-35 Lightning II isn't an average fighter jet. It's more like a flying computer built for future wars. Designed to slip past radar, outsmart enemy defenses, and strike deep behind enemy lines, it's meant for showdowns with major powers like China or Russia. But lately, this high-tech stealth jet has found itself in a very different kind of fight, against drug cartels. In mid-September 2025, Marine F-35Bs from Fighter Attack Squadron 225 touched down in Puerto Rico. Their arrival kicked off a U.S. military campaign in the Caribbean aimed at crushing drug smuggling routes that feed America's drug crisis. Backing them are roughly 1,900 sailors aboard the USS Iwo Jima and its support ships, along with over 2,000 Marines from the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, the F-35 Lightning II, which has already been deployed in other regions. Whether the U.S. would ever make that same move in Mexico, however, remains uncertain. Still, the sight of an F-35 or an aircraft carrier in the fight against drug cartels has sparked debate. Why use a $100 million stealth jet to chase smugglers in speedboats? And would it be generally effective in the war against these masterminds? The cartels may be ruthless, but they don't exactly have radar systems or fighter aircraft. Critics call it overkill, a luxury tool used for a low-tech mission. A Pentagon official, however, insists it's all part of a wider homeland defense plan. The department has a range of capabilities to defend against threats, like narco-terrorists, and Secretary Hegseth deploys the forces needed to meet the president's security goals. In other words, when the White House calls for results, the Pentagon sends its best. But not everyone is convinced. Richard Abulafia, a veteran aerospace analyst, believes the F-35 isn't the right fit for this kind of job. He explained that the F-35 shines when there's real danger from enemy air defenses or hostile jets. Otherwise, it's just expensive flying hardware. His point makes sense. These jets were built to take on advanced threats, not smugglers with outboard motors. So why would anyone even consider using such a weapon against drug traffickers? Some argue it's about showing force or testing new tech in unconventional missions, but many within defense circles think it's wasteful. The F-35 is designed to go head-to-head with enemy nations, not chase pickup trucks through jungles or coastal routes. Each flight hour costs tens of thousands of dollars. Maintenance is complex, and the plane's systems are tuned for war zones filled with surface-to-air missiles, not low-level smuggling routes. Using an F-35 for anti-cartel missions would be like sending a Formula One car to deliver mail. Impressive, but completely impractical. There's also the issue of risk. Every time an F-35 takes off, the Pentagon watches closely. Losing one would be a major blow, not just in cost, but in classified technology. Its stealth coding, targeting systems, and onboard computers are all top secret. No one wants those falling into the wrong hands because of a mission that never needed it. Instead, many believe the U.S. should rely on aircraft better suited for that kind of fight, like drones, surveillance planes, and older attack jets that can patrol for longer without burning through millions. These tools fit the mission's scale, leaving the F-35 where it belongs, preparing for the kind of battles only it can win. So when talk arises about using the F-35 in the cartel war, the question isn't whether it could, it's whether it should. Because when a plane built for the world's toughest wars gets dragged into small conflicts, it's not just the jet that's being misused. It's the very idea of what air superiority is meant to stand for. That dilemma mirrors Mexico's own long struggle, powerful tools and the same haunting outcome. No matter how the strategy shifts, the battlefield keeps evolving, and the cartels keep adapting. Mexico's war against the cartels has stretched across 4 presidencies, each promising a new way to end the bloodshed. Yet from soldiers in the streets to softer, hugs not bullets policies, the results have been painfully similar. New gangs, more violence, and a nation still trapped in conflict. When Felipe Calderon took office in 2006, he launched what became known as Mexico's War on Drugs. Almost overnight, soldiers filled the streets. Tens of thousands of troops were sent to fight cartels and take down corrupt police forces. Backed by U.S. intelligence and funding, Calderon's forces hunted down major drug lords, killing or capturing 25 of the country's 37 top cartel bosses. To many, it looked like a bold step toward victory. But the strategy came at a heavy cost. When the big bosses fell, their lieutenants turned on each other. The once powerful cartels split into dozens of smaller, more violent factions, each fighting for control. Mexico's murder rate skyrocketed. Over 120,000 homicides were recorded during Calderon's 6-year rule, nearly twice the number under his predecessor. Critics said the military wasn't trained for police work, and communities caught in the crossfire paid the highest price. In 2012, Enrique Peña Nieto took power with a promise to change direction. He said his goal was to protect civilians and businesses rather than chase down cartel leaders. Still, he couldn't break Mexico's reliance on the military. His government formed a new paramilitary-style national police force, hoping it would fill the gap between soldiers and local police. At first, things looked better. Violence dipped slightly in his early years. But by 2015, the bloodshed returned. Cartel rivalries deepened as the old kingpin strategies fallout continued. By the end of Peña Nieto's term, Mexico hit its highest homicide rate in modern history. Fragmented gangs and territorial wars turned entire regions into battlegrounds. Then came Andrés Manuel López Obrador, better known as AMLO, in 2018. He rejected the all-out military approach, saying Mexico needed hugs, not bullets. His plan was to fight the root causes of crime by improving education, creating jobs, and reducing poverty. He also pledged to tackle corruption, seize cartel money, and ease tensions with communities trapped in cartel zones. But in practice, AMLO's government still leaned on the military. He created a new security force, the National Guard, led by soldiers. Critics said this blurred the line between police and army once again. While AMLO's rhetoric was softer, cartel violence stayed high, and many Mexicans saw little change in their daily lives. Reports linking his circle to cartel money further eroded trust, and U.S.-Mexico relations grew strained. Families of the disappeared, victims lost to the drug war, accused him of protecting the same forces they blamed for the violence. By 2024, Claudia Sheinbaum stepped in as Mexico's first female president, inheriting the same war that had outlasted every leader before her. She promised to continue AMLO's hugs not bullets vision, but add sharper intelligence and investigative work to track organized crime. Her administration quickly scored a symbolic victory, the largest fentanyl seizure in Mexican history. But the violence didn't stop. Killings and territorial disputes still plague much of the country. Sheinbaum has urged the United States to step up cooperation and share more intelligence to combat the flow of weapons and synthetic drugs. Yet many observers fear Mexico may be caught in a cycle that new presidents can't easily escape. Old tactics dressed in new language. From Calderon's full-scale war to Sheinbaum's softer tone, every strategy has tried to strike at the cartel's heart. But each one, whether through force or reform, has faced the same reality. The cartels adapt faster than the government. Their power is woven into the country's economy, politics, and communities. 2 decades on, Mexico's drug war remains a story without an ending. But just as Mexico struggles to find its footing, new pressure is building north of the border. In Washington, powerful voices are calling for a tougher approach, one that doesn't just cross diplomatic lines but threatens to redraw them entirely. From the moment Donald Trump stepped back into power, talk began swirling among his inner circle about taking military action against Mexico's drug cartels. To them, the problem of fentanyl and cross-border crime called for a show of force. But behind the tough talk lies a dangerous gamble, one that could turn a fight against crime into a full-blown disaster for both nations. For years, Trump has been known for pushing limits in foreign policy. His second term has only amplified that pattern. He distanced the U.S. from longtime allies, questioned NATO's strength, and rattled global trade with new tariff battles against Canada and Europe. Now Mexico seems to be the next target on his list, not as a trading partner or neighbor, but as a potential battleground. Some of Trump's closest allies have openly suggested sending U.S. troops into Mexico to crush the cartels, especially after certain groups were labeled as foreign terrorist organizations. That classification would make military action legally possible, but at a steep diplomatic cost. For Mexico, such an act would be nothing short of an invasion. For the U.S., it would mean crossing a line that could reshape America's image in the entire region. The question in Washington has quietly shifted from, will it happen, to what would it look like if it did? Would it be a targeted strike, a long-term deployment, or something even bigger? With Trump's unpredictable style, all options seem open. Yet history offers a clear warning. When America takes its wars abroad, the results are rarely clean, quick, or controllable. Look back at Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Each started with confident promises and ended with mounting losses and political chaos. Mexico would be no different. In fact, it might be worse. The U.S. tried something similar before. In 1916, General John Pershing led a mission into northern Mexico to capture the revolutionary fighter Pancho Villa after his raid on New Mexico. The mission failed miserably. Villa slipped away, and instead of weakening him, the invasion turned him into a national hero. Mexicans united behind him, viewing him as a symbol of resistance against American aggression. A modern-day invasion would almost certainly have the same effect. Instead of dividing the cartels, it could unite them, along with millions of Mexican citizens, under a common cause, defending their homeland. President Claudia Sheinbaum's government, which already leans heavily on messages of national pride, would use the crisis to rally support and strengthen its position. Anti-American sentiment would surge, making future cooperation nearly impossible. Diplomatically, the fallout would be devastating. Latin America has long viewed U.S. interventions with suspicion, and a military strike on Mexico would confirm those fears. It would push neighboring countries further from Washington's influence and closer to global rivals like China and Russia, who are eager to expand their footprint in the region. America's credibility as a partner would crumble. Even the fight against the cartels would suffer. Current joint operations between U.S. and Mexican agencies depend on intelligence sharing and coordination. A military move would destroy that trust overnight. Without Mexico's cooperation, America would lose vital access to cartel networks, safe house intel, and cross-border smuggling routes. The very thing the U.S. wanted to stop, the flow of drugs and violence, could actually grow worse. Thanks for watching. Before you go, click the link on your screen to check out another video. See you there.